Okay, today I'm going to be working on a little project. This is a Raspberry Pi. I'm fixing it up for my brothers-in-law. I'm fixing up two of them as a little retro gaming station. There's plenty of cheap cases on Amazon, just acrylic or ABS, lots of little plastic cases. But I wanted something to put it in that would kind of evoke its purpose as a retro gaming machine. So I started looking around, looking at different projects people had done, when I realized that I had these lying around. I bought these in a lot, just a bunch of Sega games. Unbeknownst to me, every single one of them was dead. I tried them in multiple consoles, cleaned them, nothing. They are dead as a doornail. I was thinking, what in the world am I going to do with these things other than tossing them? And then the thought occurred to me, maybe this could fit inside of there. Now, problem is, and you can see that this right here is a little bit thicker than this case. So that would be a problem anyway. But on top of that, the fact that I need to be able to access these USB ports for controllers, because I don't have the budget to get wireless controllers right now. So this has got to fit inside of there, and I got to be able to access those. So I started playing around with it, and I'll show you how I've already done one of these, so I'll show you how I did it. Alright, so first step is getting some of the pieces ready. I've already gotten the Pi ready. It's fully functional right now, so it's just ready to go inside of there. So, got to get inside of this, clean it out. First things first, it's got these special bits on the back, which you can get in a set from Amazon. I got these actually to open up NES cartridge cases, but they work on here too. The size that you'll need is, make sure you get it, it's 4.5 millimeter, and this one I got goes into a standard nut driver. Fortunately, I don't feel like going out to the shed to get it, so I'm just going to use the end of my multi-tool here. But you just break them loose, unscrew them. At this point I can just take this off and do it by hand. Take that out. Take this one out. Alright, 2 screws. Won't need those anymore. And it comes apart, just a little clamshell. There's the PCB, dead as a doornail, don't need it anymore. But I will probably sell this on eBay to someone who wants it as an art project or something. I won't just toss it. So, first warning to anyone out there who wants to do this, do not do this to a functional cartridge. Even if it's one you don't like. If it's just a Madden 92 or something, get that to someone who cares. There are plenty of dead ones out there that you can do projects with. Don't mess up something that's working just for have a little project. Okay, with that spiel out of the way, I'm going to need I'll need another tool, because we need to take all this down. Screw holes. This right here needs to come down. On this side of the clamshell, both of these need to come. Standoffs need to come off. These screw mounts need to come off. This needs to come off. So, for that, we are going to need the Dremel with a cutoff wheel. Now, this will make an ungodly mess, so make sure you are somewhere that doesn't matter. Here we are. I'm going to use a Dremel cutoff wheel. Be careful with these because they are very brittle, and they will shatter and fly around the room if you put the wheel into a bind when you're cutting. So just be very careful with it. Don't press down into it. Go easy on it. After yeah. Alright, now we're back. We're going to use the Dremel sanding wheel to clean up the mess I just made on this part. And there you go. Everything's fairly clean. Alright, I'm about to work on this one, and to show you the best way of cutting this, I'm going to show you the first one that I worked on. This one I did much the same as the first side. I got the little standoffs here, got them ground down, and then the piece that meets in the middle that is a piece of plastic that kind of sandwiches the edge of the edge connector, the PCB between the two pieces. I took it completely down. Once I started fitting the pie in here, I realized that that was a mistake. Because what happens is you got this bump here on the top, a little grip, and you can't get rid of that. You grind that out, you're going to be poking a hole through the backside. So it's there to stay. What happens is you put the Raspberry Pi, it sits on that. Now, I'm not sure if you can see it, but the Raspberry Pi sits kind of crooked. If I'd left some of that in there, it'd be straight. Now, you may be saying I don't really notice it, but when you put it together, the other piece, the USB ports are poking out, and you can definitely see that when they're poking out, that it's not quite even. And it might even make this USB port a little harder to plug into. So just that little bit, just leaving enough. I think that if I take this down with the cutting wheel, but just allow the screw to ride on this plastic here, I think that'll give me just enough of a lip there to about match this and keep it even, without having to put something back in there to get it even. Now we're about to start cutting these off and cutting this. This will be the easy part. I'll start with that first. Okay, now to clean up my cuts with the sanding. The important thing that I've noticed with this, especially with the cutoff wheel, is to do your best to work in small strokes, because if you just stay on the plastic while you're cutting, it will melt, and once it melts, it's tougher, and once it melts and cools back down again, it's tougher, more brittle, just kind of tends to gum up on your tooling. Especially that's a good way of breaking these cutoff wheels. So just be careful about that. Alright, this is the big one. This is the last cut. This is the one where we're going to cut out a space for the Ethernet port and the two banks of USB ports. I'll go ahead and tell you, this is by far the most challenging cut, because it's the one that's going to be the most visible. So my advice is take your time. When I was first doing this, of course I didn't have any guide or anything, so I cut out a little bit at a time. Found a line. I started from this line here, which is where would be the outside edge. Worked backward from that. I had to kind of whittle away at the back side to give enough room for the port casings to fit. You have to have a little extra big notch here for the Ethernet port. But like I said, just take it slow, take it easy. Try not to bear into it or bind the blade up because it will shatter. It's very aggravating, and you gotta stop and put a new one in there. So take it slow. Try to keep it straight as possible because this is the side people are going to see. Alright, off we go. What may help you here is that since I want to make a straight line, I'm keeping the Dremel kind of stabilized on the table. I've got my fingers resting on the table to kind of stabilize it. I'm just raising it up and down with my hand and pushing the cartridge through the cut, almost like I'm pushing it to a table saw. That is definitely helping me keep my lines straighter. You also want to make sure that you don't overshoot your lines, your corners. Because remember that while you're focusing on the bottom of the blade, the side of the blade is cutting too. So you don't want to overshoot and cut more plastic than you intend to. I don't know if you can see that's a pretty rough cut. Actually did worse the second time than I did the first time. Oddly enough. Let's see what it looked like. It's sandwiched together. Yeah, that's what it's going to look like. If I were a much better at dremeling, I would cut these holes out and leave the plastic in between. That'd be the ideal way to do it. I am not that good. So that's for someone else to make a video about. I give the ideas, someone else executes it better. That's my motto. But as you can see, we're pretty even there, so I think I've done enough damage. Let's clean it up with the sanding disc and see what it looks like completed. Alright, that's cleaned up a little bit better. Let's sandwich it together. Let's see what it looks like. Not bad. Everything fits. We have good access to the top USB ports, which is plenty for 2 players. That's all I figure they'll ever be using for this. You still have good access to your HDMI and your power. So that's all we need. The only thing this mod doesn't give you is access to the SD card, which is right there. If I really wanted to have access to it, I'm betting I could cut a slot right, or cut this little section out right here and have access to it. But in the application it's going for, I don't think we're ever going to need to get access to it unless it's to rebuild the system, in which case that bridge when we get to it. Now we're getting it to go together and stay together. That's the next step. Okay, now it's time to get this case together. I looked through all the options that I had. I'm kind of running on a short time frame here, so I don't have time to order something. Look at what I had on hand. and also the realities of how this is going to be used, and came to the conclusion that yes, this is going to be the best option. I know I hear everybody screaming, but I considered a few other options about how to hold this in here. You know, the Pi does have screw mounts. I could have gone with that. That probably would have been a good way to make sure to get a good location as far as the cutout on top. But I didn't want screw holes showing through the backside. And this is not going to be, probably not going to be opened again once I seal it up. So it doesn't really have to be easily openable. Like I said, once it's used, it's just going to be used for this. I don't really see a point where we're going to be updating it. If I do, hot glue is easy enough to break free that it won't be a huge issue. So what I'm going to do first is, I'd give you another option. I thought about tiny little magnets in the corner, but I'm not sure how well the Pi is shielded, so I thought that might give me some random weirdo errors that are the kind of things that are just aggravating as all get out to try to figure out. So I figured better to avoid that solution. So what I'm going to do first to make sure this gets in the right position, I'm going to go ahead and slide this top on here and get the case properly sandwiched, where the edges are mating properly. And I'm just going to put a dab of glue here at the edges of the board that I can reach, just to hold it in place. Then I can take the top of the case off and get it properly seated. Gonna let that dry, and I'll come back later and get the stringy stuff cleaned up, because I hate the look of that too. But for right now, the hot glue is the best. I also know there's Sugru, but I don't have any of that on hand, and I do want this to be not completely permanent. So if I do ever need to get this apart, I can do that. So let's see how well that held. Should be able to get it off now without disturbing things. Still a little bit gooey, but a little bit off. Make sure everything's kosher. Alright. I'll lift it off carefully. And I'm just going to put hot glue in the corners, just keep it from shifting around. I just want this thing to stay put. Think about it, it's going to get pressure this way every time the cables are inserted, so I'll make sure it's got some support that way. It's still kind of gooey right now. Of course, the glue has not dried yet, but just put a little extra here. I want to make sure that doesn't go anywhere. And I got some on my micro USB power port. You gotta be careful with this stuff, it will get everywhere. Sure, you know that. Yeah, got little things everywhere. That's what I hate about hot glue, is the strings. The strings are terrible. They're everywhere. But I made my bed, now I'm gonna lay in it. That's fairly sturdy. Doesn't have to be perfect, but as good as I can. I'm not a master craftsman, nor do I have the best eye for detail. as you can tell. But I'll make these as good as I can within my abilities anyway. So that looks pretty good. I like, it's feeling pretty sturdy. It's not going to go anywhere. Let's get a knife and just trim that just a little bit. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do to get the top on, I'm going to make sure that everything is clear, because once I do this, it is go time. We're looking pretty good there. Alright, what I'm going to do is just place it in the corners, and then, oops, can't see that. I'll place hot glue in the corners, squish it down, and then cut off the excess. So I got to be quick about this. Okay, here we are. There we go. Make sure we're drying properly. That should hold it together. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention is make sure and do like I did and test it before you seal it. If you're going to seal it like this, where it's hard to get back out, seal it first, or check it first before you seal it. Because if you run into a problem where you'll need to get to the SD card, you got to crack it back open and redo all this. So make sure it works before you glue it. Alright, let that dry and then we'll trim. Okay, I already trimmed this one out. Got most of the glue where you can't see it anymore. So it's ready for a label. I just threw this one together in GIMP. Again, I'm not a graphic designer, so this is not professional work or anything, but it's what I could throw together in the time constraints. That's just pulled from online. Found a font that looked vaguely NES-like. I guess I should have found one that looked more like a Genesis, but whatever. And I've already trimmed it to fit. Try to get it as tight as I can against these USB and Ethernet port housings. And what I'm going to do, I did the print of this, just regular copy paper. I was going to laminate it, but then I realized I couldn't make that turn, and that's having that RetroPie label on the end. I really like that feature. If I hadn't done that, just had the RetroPie on the front, I could have laminated it. Be a lot more durable that way. We'll see how this goes. Again, not in color. I don't have a color printer. If I could run to town and get that printed off, that would look nicer. But this will be fine for right now. It'll at least clean it up, make it look a little better. I'm going to glue it down with just this regular Elmer's glue. The clear stuff will hopefully not show too badly if I screw up and get a little extra on there. So all I'm going to do is just put some of this on here and apply it very carefully, trying to get it from the bottom up. I've already done a lot of, just be careful when you're trimming this. Trim very carefully, do a lot of test fittings, make sure it's going to fit in the label space properly. And yeah, if you want to make one of your own, I just measured this distance out, the distance I had between here and the edge of the label, and from here to here, it was 3 inches on top, and about 2 3/8 to here, about 2 1/2 to here. I just threw those numbers into GIMP, created a canvas that size, and scaled everything to fit within that. And that came out pretty close to the size I needed. Just didn't need a whole lot of trimming. So here we go. Let's glue it up and see if I can make this happen. What I'm probably going to do is just get my fingers dirty and spread this stuff around so we don't have any of the any bumps. And plus I want this stuff spread out to the very edge so we don't get any corners picking up. Okay, that's one. I'm gonna flip it over. Start from the bottom, work our way up. Hopefully everything will stay straight. Granted, this is not super glue, so I don't have to worry about it immediately setting and letting go. I'll keep everything nice and flat as much as possible. Got some glue on the front. Great. It is washable. I'm just going to spread from the bottom up. Wrap that label around. Yeah, crap, break it next time. Not too bad. The paper is not the quality I should have used for this. You can definitely tell this is just copy paper. But not too bad for a couple hours worth of work. Okay, so here's the finished product. Label applied. Just want to get a quick look at everything, how it came together. Again, I'm not saying I'm doing the best job. I'm very aware that this is not my forte, doing things that look nice. But I'm just here throwing this idea out here, showing what I did, and maybe you can do a better job of it. Here's a couple things you need to think about when you're putting this together. There's a couple of things that could get in your way. HDMI cables. Make sure you've got some slimline HDMI cables. These are a bit thick, and this is the problem you run into. The HDMI port is a little bit high in the casing. Can't go in all the way. You have to slightly lift the casing to get the HDMI cable to go in all the way. If you've got these cables with a thicker casing on them, so be aware of that. The other thing you want to make sure of is making sure these two USB ports have clearance. So I have a wired USB controllers that will be going with these, so always good to make sure that those work fine, no binding or anything. So that is it. Please like and subscribe if you like this. If you make one, let's see how you did. I'd like to see other people's creations and see how good they look. Anyway, that's it. See you later.